Hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel, and today we are continuing the read along for ErHa Volume 5, but I have a little bit of a problem. So, long story short, my parents and I usually go out to eat and then I come back early so that I can start my live streams on time. And usually I leave enough time to like greet Juliet properly, you know, kind of like have her be able to play around for a bit, and then we come into my room and she like chills on the carpet and just sleeps while I do the live, and then my parents come fetch her at some point during the live, and that is the process. But today we didn't get enough time to like play, so she is very all over the place right now, and I don't know how that's going to affect the live stream, so I just wanted to give you guys a heads up and apologize in advance. I'm really sorry, but also hi. I think she might have settled down now. Well, fingers crossed, I'm not sure. Anyway, hi, if you're new here, I'm Janae, I read anime, and I always thought I wasn't the chaotic type, but currently it feels like that's always just me. So anyway, but yes, hi, and also I take a 10-minute break on the hour, or round about the hour, for a quick refresh on my tea and a leg stretch. And other than that, I think I've covered everything, and we're already late, so I'm gonna give it like 1 or 2 more minutes and then we're gonna get started. I'm really sorry about that. I was waiting for her to like stop being all over the place, and I think maybe now she's calmed down a little bit. Okay, so for anyone who is following along with their own copies, we are on page 131, chapter 166. And I have tea with me, so let's hope my voice holds up. Chapter 166. Oh, wait. Okay, let me not wait because I feel like I've been leaving you guys hanging for long enough. Also, I hope the audio is okay. Chapter 166. Shizun's esteemed Madame Wrong. Okay. The inscription on the stone beside Jincheng Lake read, "The path forward is difficult," in stark scarlet script. As before, Nangong Liu and Shuanglin were the only living people on the scene. Now, however, the ground was littered with the bodies of countless dead. More specifically, countless dead merfolk. Right, because they actually had to murder the people that they then impersonated as puppets. That is so grim. Hurry and seal the path. We don't want other cultivators coming up the mountain. They'll have questions. I'm almost done. Shu Shuanglin pushed a black chess piece between the lips of a limp merman and mouthed the words of a spell. The merman rose unsteadily from the ground, bowed respectfully, then leapt back into the ice-studded Jincheng Lake with a splash. I'm not sure if I understand how all of this works though, because like Shu Meng and them weren't dead, yet they were chess pieces, but then you have the mermen who are, or merfolk who are dead and chess pieces. So like, is it you can do both, it just depends on your needs? Is that the rules? I'm not yet proficient with this forbidden technique, said Shu Shuangling. Once I get the hang of it, I won't have to feed them chess pieces individually. I'll be able to point at them from afar and they'll do whatever I say. It's that powerful? Why would it be forbidden otherwise? In fact, even that kind of control is only scratching the surface. I've seen someone... Excuse you? Are you also a reincarnation of yourself? Or like a new version of... old version of yourself? I don't know how to word it, but are you the second Moran? Um, Zhuanglin paused and chuckled. I mean, I've read about someone who could control people while preserving their awareness, making them obey his orders of their own volition. Now that's true power. I hope Moran catches it, like the Moran that's watching this unfold as a memory. As it stands, I can control their bodies but not their minds. I've got a long way to go. Nangong Liu nodded. You shouldn't practice too much with it anyway. Better not to attract attention. As you say, sect leader. Thank heavens you thought of this technique though. If I'm to lift the curse, I need to open the gates to the infinite hells, and to do that, I'll require all 5 elemental spiritual essences: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Finding the spiritual essences is the hard part. We can't just show up at every sect and examine people one by one. But with Jincheng Lake under your control, every cultivator who comes here looking for weapons will reveal their spiritual core to you. We can sit back and wait for them to come to us. Nangong Liu retrieved a tangerine from the saddlebag of the horse next to him. He peeled it and began to eat, heaving a sigh of admiration. My question remains, who is the tangerine thief from the flashback? Like, who between the two of them? Because I'm sure it has to be one of them. And I don't know if I've missed that revelation, if it's still coming and it's neither of them, or it's either of them, no spoilers. But yeah, that's currently kind of what's occupying my mind. I think with the chess pieces, it depends on how strong you are. Okay, yeah, maybe if they are dead, it's easier to control them or something. That would weirdly make sense. Oh, okay. Shuanglin, all those mystical beings in Jinting Lake didn't stand a chance against you. You're brilliant. Jinting Lake is a relic of the past, Shuanglin replied with a small smile. After millions of years, the power of Guochen, the Exalted, has dissipated to almost nothing. That's the only reason someone like me can manage all this. Sect leader's praise is undeserved. Nangong Liu laughed out loud. Go on, tell me, what do you want as a reward? I kind of, like, if the tangerine thief were gonna be either of them, I would expect it to be Shuanglin because he has the more mysterious past. Nangong Liu laughed out loud. Go on, tell me, what do you want as a reward? There isn't really anything I want. Nah, that won't do. You have to name something. Then how about sect leader gives me half a tangerine? Laughing again, Nangong Liu blinked. That's it. But he peeled another tangerine and held it out to Shuanglin. Have the whole thing. Just half is enough. Shuanglin smiled blandly. I don't want much. It feels like there's a lot of subtext there. You're a pretty strange guy. But sure, if you say so, here's half. Nangong Liu offered him a portion of the tangerine. Shuanglin's fingers were inconveniently stained with blood, so he took the tangerine from Nangong Liu's fingertips with his teeth and chewed. Sweet and juicy. Delicious, he grinned. In that moment, Shuanglin's smile beneath the sunlight held a sinister shadow. The juice of the tangerine trickled from his lips, pooling at the corners of his mouth. He licked it away, his tongue flicking out like a viper mid-hiss. Nangong Liu jerked his hand back on instinct, as though spooked, but the expression on his face was one of puzzled annoyance, as if he himself had no idea what had scared him. Look at that, Shuanglin said abruptly. What? Nangong Liu tore his gaze away from Shuanglin's face to look. His eyes flew wide. A complicated expression surfaced on his pudgy features. It's that creature. The Merlion? Piranha, okay. Shuangling hauled the dead thing over, tossing the corpse upon the rocky shore to examine it carefully. The monster had the body of a fish and the head of a lion. Its bloody fangs bared in a pained grimace, and its lifeless, dull black eyes bulging in distress. Shizun dipped his fingers into the blood on the piranha's body. He gave it a whiff, and his bare toes curled subconsciously as he frowned. Ugh, that's vile. He straightened and kicked the piranha away. This should be quite an uncommon creature in Jincheng Lake. It's said that Guchen left behind only auspicious creatures like dragons to guard the weapons in the lake, but the passage of time has wrought many changes upon them. Even devils can ascend and gods can fall, to say nothing of this humble creature. Nangong muttered, "Back then, this was the one that made me offer up Rong Yan's heart." Ooh, that's a grim bit of information. At this, the crowd outside the illusion stood stunned. Other than Chu Wanning, who already knew the truth, all were shaken by this revelation. What? Rongyan? But that's... While some spluttered, others had already craned their necks to look at Nangong in surprise and pity. That's his. After Nangong's initial astonishment, he began trembling from head to toe. This feels like Zhang Cheng witnessing his parents' deaths. Like, this feels weirdly just as tragic. Imagine having to discover all of this, or like Jinling discovering what his uncle did. Can you imagine finding this all out at the same time that the public does? And it's your family. Okay, oh my word, no. And it's not like he can like go hide somewhere to process everything. After Nangong's initial astonishment, he began trembling from head to toe. Staggering backwards, he crumpled to his knees. His face was ashen, his expression ghastly to behold. Mom? No way! No way! Sir, Yuangxi tearfully murmured. No way. Nangong's eyes were wild, his handsome face twisted with fear and wrath, sorrow and shock, his features warped almost beyond recognition. He couldn't understand what anyone was saying. He couldn't hear anything at all. That's impossible. My mom died fighting evil spirits. Father told me she was fighting evil spirits when they pierced her heart and killed her. He shuddered all over and mumbled, Her heart was destroyed. They stabbed her in the heart and she died. He didn't cry, but his eyes were round as saucers bulging from their sockets. He hoarsely repeated these words over and over, first mumbling and muttering, then spitting and shouting, before breaking into feral howls. They stabbed her! They stabbed her in the heart! A memory flashed before his eyes. Nangong had been very young when his mother and father had set out with a group of Rufeng cultivators to seek weapons from Jincheng Lake. His memory of the evening before they left was distinct. He had played with Nao Baijin in the forest behind the mountain until it was late. It was long after nightfall when he crept back to his room to pretend he'd been studying the whole time. Little did he know that his mother had stopped by after dinner to give him a clothes quiver she had embroidered. Discovering the young master's residence empty, she realized Nangong had snuck out to play. Rongyan had a naturally cold disposition. She never doted on Nangong like other mothers. When she returned to his quarters that night, Nangong was holding up a volume of Carefree Wandering, making a great show of reading it aloud. Rongyan stopped him and asked, What did you do after dinner? Unaware that Rongyan already knew he'd been slacking, Nangong set down the scroll, scratched his head, and said brightly, Mother, I've been memorizing this book. All this time? The young Nangong was afraid of being punished. He stalled for a moment before nodding. Uh-huh. Rongyan straightened her slender neck and set her jaw. When she looked at Nangong, her gaze was sharp and cold. You're lying. Nangong jumped. am not, he replied, blushing furiously. Rongyan didn't waste words on the child. She rolled up the bamboo scroll and asked, "What comes before?" If the whole world blamed him, he despaired not. If the whole world praised him, he rejoiced not. Rongyan's elegant brows lowered in a scowl. She slapped the scroll onto the table with a crack. "Nangong, what have I already taught you?" she said sternly. "It's one thing to run around outside after dark, but now you've learned to tell lies." Guys, I'm sorry. I feel so bad for my dog, but at the same time, there's nothing I can do. So sorry if you can hear a whimper in the background. Sorry, I'm like, it's distracting me, but there really is nothing I can do about it. Okay, sorry. Where were we? Mom. Okay, let me just try and calm her down for a second. I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, sorry about that. I think the whining was because she heard my parents arriving. Okay, let us go back. Mom. Silence. In the face of her anger, Nangong panicked. Although his father was easygoing and affable, between his parents he'd always had more respect for his haughty and severe mother. "Your behavior is unacceptable." The rims of Nangong's eyes reddened against his will. Terrified of an even harsher scolding, he retorted, still clinging to hope. I didn't get back that late. I just played outside for a little after dinner." Rongyan glared at him. She hadn't been all that angry to begin with, but watching her son rack his brain for excuses deepened her irritation into fury and disappointment. As soon as it got dark, I came. A sharp slap across the face cut Nangongse off mid-sentence. Chest heaving, Rongyan's hand hung in the air as she cried furiously, "Nangongse! As the gentleman of Rufang sect, I mustn't indulge in greed, resentment, deception, slaughter, obscenity, plunder, or conquest. Have you forgotten this entirely? Are you going to stand here to lie to your mother?" The very sad irony that her husband did all of the above. Whew. Dazed from the slap, Nangong took a long moment to come back to his senses. His eyes pricked with tears of indignation as he wailed, "Why, why would I lie to you if you weren't? Why would I lie to you if you weren't so mean? You're always hitting me and huh? Like, look, I know this is a historical kind of setting, but the hitting, connecting that. How should I phrase this? The fact that she slapped him in the face is bad enough, but because of the way he phrased it, connected with her just having slapped him in the face, implies that the hitting that she does is not for discipline, which you can kind of like have a separate discussion about. This kind of just implies this is a normal occurrence for her to just slap her son in the face, which like, excuse you, ma'am. Okay. You're always hitting me and yelling at me. You're horrible. I don't like you. I only like Daddy. He jumped to his feet, ready to run off and find Nangong Liu. Oh, that's the last time he saw his mom. Don't even think about it. Rongyan yanked him back with an ugly expression. She tapped Nangong on the nose with a nail painted scarlet with a cardamom, anger surging in her eyes. What's your dad gonna do? He nods yes to everything all day long, worthless bootlicker that he is. Do you really want to be like him? Sit down. I won't. Rongyan gritted her teeth and dragged the struggling child back onto his chair. But as soon as she let go, Nangong tried to make another escape. At last, Rongyan had no choice but to raise her hand and bring down a restraining barrier with a crash. The barrier held the child firmly in place. Nangong fell to his knees, humiliated and furious, panting like a caged beast. Let me go! I don't want a mother like you. You never say a kind word to me. You don't care about me. You just yell at me. All you ever do is yell at me. Rongyan's face turned red and then white. After a long pause, she said through trembling lips, Stay in your room and behave. Memorize carefree wandering from beginning to end. I will test you tomorrow. Keep making trouble, and I'll. She found herself at a loss. What would she do? She really didn't know. She'd always been a spirited and iron-willed woman. She thought nothing of reprimanding her craven husband in public to put him in his place. But when it came to Nangong, what would she do? She stood for a while, bitter and resentful, sorrowful and exasperated. As rage curdled in her heart, she began to cough violently. It was an old illness that plagued her for many years. After a spat of coughing, she hacked out a mouthful of dark blood. Feigning nonchalance, she wiped her mouth clean with a handkerchief before Nangong noticed. Of course, this is just so tragic. Sa'ar, you are young, she said, her voice hoarse and somber. You haven't learned to see what's good or bad, what's wrong, right or wrong with your own eyes. Sometimes those who indulge you don't have your best interests at heart, and those who are strict with you may not wish you ill. Your father is weak and incompetent. She paused. I don't want you to become a cultivator or sect leader like him, she finished. I agree with her sentiment, even if I don't agree with all her actions. Nangong bit his lip in silence. Yes, you're a troublemaker and you don't apply yourself to your studies. These are small things. But where did you learn to lie? Our Rufeng sect is built upon centuries of storied tradition. Only by maintaining the values of gentlemen can we stand at the forefront of the cultivation world. Your father has never earnestly taught you these principles, but as your mother, I will remind you of them every time. Even if you don't listen, even if you think I'm harsh, even if you hate me for it. If Daddy doesn't teach me, that's because he sees me as Sa'ar. He's happy when I'm happy, unlike you, Nangong snapped. What kind of mother are you? You only see me as Rufeng Sect's young master and the future sect leader. I never have any fun with you. I'm not gonna listen to you. This is so sad, because, like, I kind of agree with him to a certain extent, but I think the sad reality is Nangong Liu is lax, or was lax, when it came to teaching Sa'ar anything. And his mother in turn overcorrected by being too stern with him and too unemotional, because he got all of that already from his dad, so I can't also indulge him. And hence we have this situation. It's kind of typical, in my opinion, when mom is more strict, because she's actually involved in the kid's life. She's the kid. Oh, and there, to top off everything else that went wrong, there goes my camera's battery. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I think I forgot to mute, so sorry if you heard all the technical sounds going on. It's typical. So the kid sees dad in a better light, because he basically only, yeah, that's more or less it. Oh goodness. Okay. Let's try continuing. Hmm. Rongyan was furious. Her cheeks, usually white as snow, were unnaturally flushed. She covered her mouth with a handkerchief as she was overcome with another coughing fit. This time, it took her longer to catch her breath. At last, she said sternly, "Fine. If you won't listen, I'll tell you every single day until you understand." Nangong, surpassingly stubborn, even as a child, had clapped his hands over his ears. Rongyan sat down and gradually smoothed her emotions, but her chest still twinged with pain. This old heart injury was one she had sustained while exercising demons. She took medicine for it every day, but it only worsened with time. When she looked up and saw her son's rebellious expression in the candlelight, she had to close her eyes again. Finally, she said in a more measured tone, "Sa'ar, I won't be by your side forever. There will come a day when I can't watch over you. I only hope that in the future you'll understand." She trailed off. Within her barrier, Nangong was curled into a tiny ball, crying. Her child, her carefree and bright Sa'ar, had begun to sob under the force of her scolding. For a long while, Rongyan could only stare. Slowly, she rose and walked over to the barrier. She reached out, wanting to undo the spell, to lean down and take this child into her arms, to touch his reddened face, to press a kiss to his forehead. But she restrained herself, her figure stiff and unrelenting. With effort, she finished the sentence she had started. "You need to understand. As a gentleman of Rufung sect, I mustn't indulge in greed, resentment, deception, slaughter, obscenity, plunder, or conquest." "I don't get it. I don't want to. I. Lifting tearful eyes, Nangong railed at his mother, who stood outside the barrier. "I hate you. I don't want a mom like you." Rongyan was silent. In that moment, her face, visible through the barrier, was pale and resolute as ever, yet seemed to contain a measure of grief and heartbreak. For 20 years, Nangong had seen that face in his dreams. Each time, his pillow was wet when he woke. His younger self was like a scorpion brandishing its pincers, injecting venom straight into his mother's heart. It hurt. It hurt so much. It was a pain that would persist for a lifetime. He would never forgive himself. Ugh. And also, like, obviously this is tragic, but it feels like there's a lot of parallels between the way that Rongyan is behaving and the way that Chuaning behaved in his previous lifetime. Yeah, and like I actually also suddenly just have the urge to go and check on my parents. Like they're there, I can hear them, but oh, okay. Oh, and then we of course have a stunning but tragic illustration. Just to like pierce that dagger in a little bit more in case it wasn't bad and painful enough already. I hope you guys can see that properly because it really is stunningly sad. 3 days later, Rongyan still hadn't come to the residence to see Nangong. Instead, she asked her maid to deliver the courier embroidered with camellia flowers, along with a letter. Even her writing was formal and solemn, unadorned with niceties. She said she knew Sar had recently been learning martial arts and taken a liking to archery, so she'd embroidered a quill for his use. She would be travelling to Jincheng Lake with his father. Upon her return, she still intended to review Carefree Wandering with him, and she hoped he wouldn't continue to stubbornly shirk his studies. This hurts a lot. Okay, so it's not just me seeing the parallels with Chuaning, that's good to know. And what had Nangong done? Angry and resentful, no! He had taken a knife and cut his mother's quiver into countless scraps. Damn! Like, just when I think Meatbon can't make a situation worse, she goes and she does it. He had tossed his mother's letter into the fire and burned it to ashes. He had ripped up the copy of Carefree Wandering on his table. As a young child, he had delighted in these daring acts of destruction. He lashed out at her. He hated her. He wanted her to know that he'd never, ever listen to such a terrible mother. He would never bend to her will. He'd bared his venomous fangs and erected his walls. He waited for his mother to humble herself before him, to admit her mistakes. Or perhaps, back then, he'd summoned this pathetic burst of malevolence as a tool to trade for a single gentle word, a single warm embrace from his mother. So he waited. But he never received any of those things. An admission of wrongdoing or a hug, some show of remorse or gentleness. He would have accepted anything. He had stood his ground, quite self-satisfied, waiting to fight another round with that woman, only to retrieve um only to receive instead her cold corpse. Great, great, we love that. We love that for him. Rufung's sex leader was ambushed in the forest late at night. His wife shielded him from the attack. She was stabbed in the heart and passed away. When the coffin arrived, Nangong stood dazed at the foot of the Rufung sect's towering city gate. The ground was littered in white silk and paper money. As the heir to the sect, his place was at the front of the procession. According to funeral customs, after an elder shattered an earthenware pot, the madam's coffin would be carried over a fire pit and re-entered the sect. Her son was to kneel and cry, knocking his head against the ground to welcome back his mother's soul. But Nangong couldn't cry. He felt the whole thing was absurd, empty and unreal. The brilliant sunlight dazzled his eyes as it glanced off the ground. He felt dizzy and nauseated. It wasn't real. It wasn't real. If it was real, what should he do? How could he possibly accept it? Before death had separated them, the last reminder his mother had given him was this: as a gentleman of roof and sect, I mustn't indulge in greed, resentment, deception, slaughter, obscenity, plunder, or conquest. And how had he answered her? He didn't want to remember, but his hateful cries from that day had been carved into his bones. His mother's face outside the barrier had been so pained, so sorrowful. It hurt. It really hurt too much. The last words he had said to his mother in this lifetime were, I hate you. I don't want a mom like you. This is a lot. The coffin was hoisted over the fire. The elder smashed the earthenware pot. Thousands knelt and wept, and his father choked with sobs at the side of the casket. But Nangong stood alone, clutching that chamomile quiver he had cut to pieces. Its embroidered petals were vivid red, the stamens canary yellow. The flowers it depicted were dusted with snow, yet flourishing nonetheless, as though his mother's warm fingertips had but brushed the coarse fabric and awoken these brilliant blooms. Perhaps she'd had some premonition before her death, or perhaps it was only happenstance. Her embroidery was so detailed, the flowers so lifelike, that it seemed like she had taken all the love she hadn't spoken out loud, all her future lessons and advice, and stitched them, thread by thread, onto the little cloth quiver. Nangong clutched the quiver tightly. It was the very last thing his mother had left for him. Oh, okay. Because everyone ring our parents' guardians and tell them we love them, right? Yeah. In fact, so I know it's been a mess up until this point, but I think I'm gonna take the 10-minute break now, and then once I feel more composed, we're gonna jump back into this, even though there's absolutely no guarantee that the next chapter is not gonna have me in tears. But I also just need to get some tissues. So, to be honest, this moment doesn't work so much for me as it could, because my parents are super gentle and affectionate, hugs and all, and I always despise such cold parenting, even in, if the parents mean well. I mean, I think for me the reason why it works personally is because I've never experienced that level of coldness. It's more sorrow that I feel for Nangong for being put in the situation in the first place and experiencing that level of loss, while also not really ever having had his parents in the truest sense of the word. I don't know if I'm making sense. But yeah, anyway, I'm feeling very depressed, so that's wonderful. I will see you guys at 5-2. I just want to see here. I'm 25 and still snuggle on this sofa with my mom. Zero shame. Same, and also 29 and still cuddling with my parents when I get the chance. Okay, I am back. I have new tea. I have tissues in case we need them, and I feel slightly less scattered. So here's to hoping the next hour is going to be less chaotic than the first one. Okay, let's pull everything back up. I hope the audio is still okay. Okay, this was a full-on conversation that was going on while I was away, so I'm not going to recap that right now. I'll go back and check afterwards. But yeah, let's get going again. Also, hi, Cookielicious. It's good to see you as well. Okay, we are on page 145 for anyone who is following along with their own books, and it's chapter 167. Shizun, I don't want anyone to scold you ever again. Ooh. Okay. That feels like it's gonna indicate towards a flashback that involves Chuaning, maybe? Okay, let's see. But the illusion paid no heed to Nangong's anguish. It pressed on mercilessly, laying open one grisly truth from the past after another. On the shore of Jincheng Lake, Nangong Liu crushed the face of the now I know what that word is, and I can't believe I misread it previously. Merlion piranha beneath his heel. Scrutinizing it carefully, he pronounced, "Bastard. This bastard wanted Madam's spiritual call. Sect leader, you should have refused," said Shushwanglin. But sect leader still sold his wife off for a holy weapon. Don't say it like that. I didn't sell her off. Rong Shijie was in poor health to begin with. The fact that he refers to his own wife as Rong Shijie feels very impersonal. It feels so distant. Rainbow Isle's best doctors examined her. Even they said she didn't have long. I would never have sacrificed her to this monster had she been in good health. Just like, can we make a list of all the reasons why we don't like Nangong Liu? Shu Shuanglin raised his eyebrows a fraction but said no more. Nangong Liu stared at the Merlion piranha a while longer. His temper suddenly fled. Life is so unfair, he grumbled. A look of surprise crept over Shu Shuanglin's face, as if he hadn't expected someone blessed with both fame and fortune to have complaints about their fate. He let out a snort of laughter. What? I said, life is unfair. Shu Shuanglin didn't respond. When others get holy weapons, Nangong Liu continued, the lake creatures ask for a flowering branch or a song. Why is it that I summoned a monster that wanted my wife dead? What could I have done? I feel like it's probably because you're a monster in and of yourself that you summoned a fellow monster. And maybe that's just me overthinking it. He looked deeply resentful. You saw it yourself back then. Our retinue held their tongues, but the Zongshu rebuked me. That Chuaning. A 15-year-old kid. Yet he dared disrespect me like that, giving me an earful about morals and integrity. Empty words. If he had to choose between a dying wife and an unsurpassable holy weapon, I refused to believe he would choose the former. Shushwanglin only grinned. Hard to say. Don't look at me like that. Seriously, you never can tell what those kinds of people really think. What else could they think? They only care for burnishing their own reputations. As if I don't know what these people are like, Nangong grew increasingly sullen. Cursing, he kicked the piranha again. Ever since I became sect leader, I've suffered one indignity after another. Sir, your wife's death is not an indignity. It is a great tragedy. There is a difference. On top of that damn curse, I have to paste a smile on my face all day long. It's a good thing I learned to swallow my humiliation. Otherwise I would have likely died at the hands of Chuaning the day I obtained my sword. You're quite correct. Shizun was still all smiles. Back then I also thought Chuaning was going to kill you. Yet you somehow persuaded him not only to spare you from Tianwen's killing blow, but also to keep his mouth shut about Jincheng Lake. Esteemed sect leader, your talent for saving your own skin is second to none. Look, we know why Chuaning made the decision that he made, but I don't think this is gonna look good to an outsider because they don't have the context, and even with the context that might not be enough, which I wouldn't be able to judge them for. Even if he was outraged, he knew he couldn't afford to throw Rufeng Sect into chaos, said Nangong, and there was Saar to think of as well. We told him his mother died from her injuries while exorcising demons. It's surely less upsetting than the truth. I mean, just a tiny bit. I'm being facetious. Heaving a sigh, Shizhuanglin nodded agreeably. No wonder that Zongshi left. If I were him, I'd be thoroughly disgusted with you as well. And yet you're here. Do you think I wanted to do it? That I had a choice? Nangong snapped. I already said it. Life is unfair. At this point, one of the people watching stole a glance at Chuaning and muttered, so Chu Zongshi knew the truth about Madame Long all along? Not only knew, he helped Nangong cover the whole thing up and didn't tell anyone what really happened. I guess he didn't want any trouble. He was only 15. If he really offended Rufeng Sect, there'd be consequences. Yeah, no, like, I still can't believe Chuaning was 15 and was addressed as Zongshi. He's still a child. Yeah. It's sad because I feel like I get why he was so easily manipulated, because again, he's young and he cares a lot for Saar, and I can see how that would tear someone apart. I don't know how to phrase it. But it's so frustrating because you just know that if Chuaning had known that Nangong Liu couldn't be trusted, if he had that wisdom back then, he would not have hesitated to out him or kill him, even if it meant incurring the wrath of the entire sect, because that's just the kind of person he is. Another softly spoke up in Chuaning's defense. I don't think so. He lost a lot to gain a little. Didn't Nangong Liu say Chu Zongshi concealed the truth because he wanted to protect Nangong's feelings? If it's true, it just means he has poor judgment. What's more important, a little kid's feelings or a sect leader's integrity? Ah, if only he spoke up then. Rufeng Sect wouldn't be in this mess today. Wow. To protect a little kid's feelings, forgetting that the person they're talking about was a kid himself still. Sorry, I keep losing my place. How can you say that? If he had publicly accused Nangong, it would have been complete chaos in the upper cultivation realm. People's decisions are their own. If it were me, I probably wouldn't want to stick my neck out either. Well, if it were me, I'd have totally exposed Nangong Liu for the monster he is. With these sorts of things, inaction makes you an accomplice. Easier said than done, good sir. Sorry, that's me, that's not the book. Their voices were low, but Moran's ears were sharp. Furious, he was about to walk over and have a word when a hand grabbed his sleeve. Shizun. Chuaning shook his head, face impassive. Don't waste your breath. But it's not like that at all. Can't they understand? How could you have possibly spoken out in this situation? Who's the one with poor judgment? It's plainly... Are you angry? Chuaning asked mildly. Moran nodded. Do you feel like you won't be satisfied until you do something? Moran nodded again. Okay, then help cover my ears. Why is that the cutest thing ever? Like, was not expecting that at all. Moran froze mid-nod. I don't intend to argue, but I'd rather not hear it. Cover my ears until they're done talking. So Moran stepped behind Chuaning and genuinely reached up to press his hands to Chuaning's ears. As he looked down at the man before him, he was overcome with outrage and heartache. He couldn't understand it. Why were people still disappointed in Chuaning when he did everything so well? Over 2 lifetimes, Moran had seen how this man lived for others with every breath, how he never indulged in a single day of selfishness. Why then did so many rush to criticize him behind his back for one controversial choice or ambiguous decision? It seemed this was always the way of things. People were wont to shed tears of gratitude over an evil person's single good deed and viciously latch onto a good person's single mistake. In the past lifetime, Tai Jun had slaughtered countless thousands, but one day he'd done something completely out of character. He'd sent 10,000 gold to each master at Wubai Temple. Everyone had praised him to the skies. Tai Jun had suddenly lain down the butcher's knife to become a Buddha. For a short time, people spoke of Tai Jun like some beneficent god, all because of this one tiny act of magnanimity. Sorry, I'm struggling with that word. I know how to pronounce it, and yet my mouth does not want to. And what of Chuaning? He was an indisputable grandmaster, one of the world's most benevolent cultivators. But at his tiniest error, people would open their mouths to spit malice unchecked. Moran had seen it play out too many times. When Chuaning was harsh, he was called cold-blooded. When Chuaning was soft, he was called timid. In his 5 years of travelling, Moran had once overheard someone recount the incident with Landlord Chin at Butterfly Town. To hear them tell it, Chuaning had whipped his client bloody and injured an ordinary civilian solely because he was trying to garner attention. He's a man carved from wood. He's got no conscience to speak of. See now, any normal person would have a few friends, right? But look at Chuaning. At 15, he turned his back on Master Huaizhi's sect, and he's been on his own ever since. Is there anyone in the wide world who would claim him as a friend? Right? And no matter how much in the wrong Butterfly Town's landlord Chin might have been, he was still the client. Chuaning was way out of line. He cares nothing for his sect's reputation or the moral code of cultivators. If you ask me, he's been alone too long. His mind's twisted. Chuaning's mind was twisted. Who was the twisted ones here? Had this man not sacrificed enough? Was it necessary to drain his blood, rend his flesh, and offer up his bones just so he would be considered right and good? Just so, in their estimation, he would live up to the title of Chuzongshi. Chuaning was tall and slender, but as Moran, now fully grown, stood behind him to cover his ears, the top of Chuaning's head scarcely cleared his jaw. Chuaning was neither delicate nor weak, but as Moran watched him through the lowered lashes, he suddenly found Chuaning deeply pitiable. Boundless affection and tenderness welled up in him. He wanted more than ever to embrace this man, not out of lust. He only wanted to put his arms around him. In this harsh world, Moran only wanted to use his own flesh and blood to surround Chuaning with warmth. That was all. However, Chuaning was more than accustomed to mindless criticism like, "If it had been me, I would have done this or that." To him, these comments were wholly unremarkable. The recollection from Jincheng Lake faded, and the shards of memory broke apart and came together again. But Chuaning looked away. His searching eyes found Nangong. The young man had his back to him, still kneeling where he'd fallen. Chuaning sighed softly. Technically, he and Nangong weren't master and disciple, but it wouldn't be wrong to consider them so. He had hoped Nangong would go through life thinking Rongyan had met an unfortunate demise while fighting demons. But this world hadn't bent to his wishes. Many years had elapsed, but the truth still burned quick through that paper-thin deception, reducing it to ash. Another beautiful description. In Chuaning's eyes, Nangong's kneeling figure overlapped with the child kneeling in the funeral hall from his memories. The child had clumsily tried to recite Carefree Wandering, but he hadn't practiced enough. He couldn't recount it smoothly. While wiping out his tears, he carefully recited the lines he knew for his mother. I am not going to cry. I refuse. In the great northern sea is a fish called the kun. The kun is huge. I know not how many thousands of miles long. It turns into a bird called the pung. He spoke haltingly. Each time he paused, his young face creased with suffering too heavy for his ears. If the whole world praised him, he rejoiced not. If the whole world blamed him, he despaired not, for he knew his inner self from the outside influence. He could tell. The child's soft voice caught in his throat. He couldn't go on. His small frame trembled slightly, like a willowkin in the wind. At the last, unable to hold back any longer, he covered his face and sobbed. "Mom, I was wrong. Saar was wrong. Please wake up, Mom. I won't goof off anymore. Wake up, please. Teach me, okay?" Later on, Nangong would inscribe Carefree Wandering from memory during every morning class. This text accompanied him all the way from when he was a small child until he grew up into a high-spirited young master of Rufeng sect. Madame Rong was gone. She would never teach him again. Not long after, Chuaning left as well. He never looked back. Nangong took no one else as his master. He relied on that patched-up old cover and the maxim, "As a gentleman of Rufeng sect, I mustn't indulge in greed, resentment, deception, slaughter, obscenity, plunder, or conquest." Within the impenetrable walls of the world's foremost cultivation sect, the child blossomed into an upstanding young hero, as unlike his father as night from day. Thus did 15 years pass since Madame Rong's death. I feel like this can definitely go down in history, well, in Dunmay history at least, as one of the worst wedding days. Like, I know there are quite a few very bad wedding days, but this one I feel should definitely be somewhere up there. Oh. Okay. Sorry, I didn't read this. But for sure, he's the Wei Wuxian. As long as his conscience is clear, he doesn't mind other people's opinions. He'd face the entire sect if he knew he was morally right. Yeah. Oh, okay. We're surviving. It's fine. Another illusion coalesced overhead. This time, Nangong Liu's sleeping quarters materialized before the crowd. The moon was full, and Nangong Liu was curled up in the bed, on which was lain a bamboo sleeping mat and hollow bamboo pillow. It was clearly summer in the illusion, yet Nangong Liu was swaddled in thick blankets and shivering uncontrollably, his lips blue. Chuaning patted Moran's hand, still covering his ear. Let go, I want to watch this. You don't have to, said Moran. I can tell you about it later. He didn't want to release Chuaning, but after several insistent taps, Moran knew persuasion would be futile. He let his hands fall and gloomily surveyed their surroundings. If he heard one more person blame Chuaning, he resolved to commit them to memory and take revenge later. As long as it's not like Tashi and Jun level revenge, then I'm here for it. Within the illusion, Shizun stepped through the doorway and made a crooked, careless bow to Nangong Liu. Nangong Liu seemed used to this and paid it no mind. Eyes bloodshot, he muttered, Shuanglin, where's the medicine? Where's the medicine? I prepared it, but it didn't work. Nangong Liu wailed, snot and tears running down his face in his terror. How? You said you could do it. I can't stand it anymore. It feels like my bones have grown thorns. Quick, close the windows. I don't want any light in here, none at all. It's already closed. Tonight's a full moon. Even if you don't set a foot outside, it'll hurt, said Shushuanlin. It's no use. You can't escape it. No. Where's the medicine? Nangong Liu was almost incessant with pain. Where is it? Where? You said you can make it. I trusted you. Where's the medicine? I consulted that old scroll again. It's impossible to formulate. It's impossible to formulate. The curse on you is too strong. Only one thing can reverse it. What? I'll give you whatever you need. Just give me the medicine. Give me the medicine. I need the spiritual core of the person who laid the curse, said Shushuanglin. But then, if he started off with that, why on earth would Nangong Liu think that, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but that eating the man's flesh was the solution, when, even from the start, Shushuanlin said, the core is the thing. Ugh. Okay. Nangong Liu instantly paled. Spiritual core? You need his spiritual core? Do you have it? How would I have it? Nangong Liu roared, hair disheveled, spittle flying from his mouth. You know who cursed me? My dear Shizun, that useless, worthless gentleman. Liu Fenghua. He betrayed me, so I hacked him into a million pieces when I chased him off the sect leader's seat. I sank his ashes into the most inauspicious blood pool and sent his soul to the infinite hells. He'll never reincarnate. Damn, this man had like a vengeance to him. Even his skeleton must have rotten away by now. Yet, you want me to find his spiritual core? How am I supposed to find it? How? Shushuanglin calmly waited for Nangong Liu to finish his tirade. Only after Nangong Liu had sunk into a despairing silence, his cries stifled in his throat, did Shushuanglin say slowly, I have thought of a way to do it, but it's incredibly difficult. Do you want to hear it? Tell me quickly, hurry up and tell me. Liu Fenghua is deceased, yes, but you should be familiar with what's written in the record of the dead. Ghosts that fall into the infinite hells may never reincarnate, but it's still possible to gather the three eternal souls and 7 corporal spirits to create a ghost form that resembles their mortal body. The more terrible their death, the more powerful that resurrected ghost form will be. Some even develop a gigantic external skeleton in order to protect the souls from scattering. Ah, okay, so that is what we saw. Originally, that makes sense at least. But how? It's not like I can march down to the infinite hells to fish up his corpse. You can't go there, but we can summon him here. Shushwanglin's lips curled slightly, his expression so serene beneath the candlelight that he might have been chatting about whom to visit for tea. The ghost realm and the living world are separated by a barrier. If you assemble 5 of the purest and strongest spiritual energies, you can open a passage to the infinite hells. Open to the infinite hells? Shushwanglin chuckled. That's right. You can rip open a passage and summon Luo Fenghua's ghost form. His ghost form should be identical to his mortal body, including a spiritual core. Okay, here comes the bit that I was asking about. If you eat his flesh and extract his spiritual core, the curse will be broken. After a pause, he continued, but assembling 5 great spiritual energies will be no easy task. Ideally, we'd use the souls of the purest elemental spiritual essences. Don't fret, let me see if there is another way. Nangong Liu opened his mouth to speak, but all that emerged was an eerie howl. Dribbling tears and mucus, he crumbled onto the bed, shivering violently. Does it hurt that much? Shizhuangling sighed. That Shizun of yours must have left such a vicious curse on the ring, because he loathed you for killing his own master. How very pitiful. Nangong Liu whimpered. There, bear with it. Once the sun comes up, it wouldn't hurt any more, Shizhuangling said. He sat cross-legged on the edge of the bed, cheek in one hand as he picked at his toes with the other. I'd stay and chat with you. The pain wouldn't be as bad if you're distracted. Squirming deeply into the bedding, Nangong Liu panted in agony. What to talk about? Oh, sorry. I totally misread that. What to talk about? Mused Shushwanglin. How about Sa'ar? Real handful, isn't he? By nature, his spiritual core is unruly and prone to chi deviation. Doesn't it run in the family? I heard his great-grandfather had a similar problem. Cowering under the blankets, Nangong Liu swallowed. What do you plan to do about it? What do you mean? Nangong Liu sounded irritated. His illness is a far sight easier to deal with than mine. He'll just have to take the right wife in the future. The flow of spiritual energy can be controlled through dual cultivation, so you'd better just focus on my curse, all right? Another reason why we don't like Nangong Liu, just in case you needed another reason. Haven't I been focusing on your curse this whole time? The more you think about it, the more it'll hurt. Scratching his toes, Shushwanglin grinned and returned to his subject. But won't that sort of dual cultivation harm his partner? I heard Sa'ar's great-grandmother died quite young. Nonsense! I was just making conversation. To think she really died from dual cultivation, Shushwanglin sighed. Rufeng sect is so treacherous. The sect leader actually sacrifices their own wives to solve their own problems. So even if he hadn't murdered his wife, he would have been the cause of her death eventually as well? Oh, that is very, very, very messy. The lives of women are worthless to begin with. Well, excuse the heck out of you. You really do have a low opinion of women, don't you? Shizhuangling remarked cheerfully. It's not as if you're ignorant to our founder's teachings. Oh, but I am. What did your founder say? Rufeng sect should be led by gentlemen. True enough. And what's a gentleman? A man. Get it? Shizhuangling snorted. Allow me to say something impudent. Sect leader, you've misunderstood this phrase. In the hero's tomb, our founder is probably turning over in his grave about it now. You've never married. How could you understand? Nangong Liu muttered. When it comes to women, what use are they, aside from continuing the ancestral line? I mean, you sure found her useful when you cut out her heart and used it to bargain for a spiritual tool. But yeah, no, women have no use, because clearly their spiritual cores are worth nothing. That's their responsibility. My grandmother was more than willing to sacrifice her life for my grandfather's sake. More than willing? Shishwangling laughed. Then will you also find Sarah a wife more than willing to dual cultivate with him and sacrifice herself? Nangong Liu ground out. I've already found one. Shishwangling blinked. What? Who? Who is it? He shuffled noisily towards the middle of the bed, almost as if he wanted to yank Nangong Liu out of the covers. How nice. So you already have a candidate for Rufeng Sect's young mistress? Come, who's the lucky lady? Nangong Liu burrowed deeper into the blankets. Suppressing the pain, he said hoarsely, Your foster daughter, Yi Wangxi. This man is the very definition of confusion, and very confused. How is he simultaneously like, okay, so women are useless, but Yi Wangxi, you are a woman. Go and pretend to be a man, and that will fix it. But also, I need you to remain womanly enough to also marry my son. Look, I thought I was bad at mathematics, but apparently I have to feel absolutely no shame about it, because Nangong Liu is worse. Anyway, sorry, I'm just better. Chapter 168. Shizun, someone's messing with the body. Which body? Are we talking about the corpse or are we talking about Shizun's body? I guess we'll have to find out. I just want to check something real quick. Okay. Within the illusionary scene, Shishuanglin's eyes widened. Many of those watching followed suit. Moran had a vague feeling that something wasn't right. He lived two different lifetimes, and when he considered this conversation in the context of what he knew from the past life, some thought-provoking details emerged. He had been aware of Ye Wangxi's feelings for Nangong Se for two reasons. In the past lifetime, before Ye Wangxi died, she expressed her wish to be buried with Nangong Se. Ye Wangxi's identity as a woman had also been common knowledge before then, because Nangong Liu himself had arranged for her to marry Nangong Se. It was clear now that Nangong Se's father had been seeking a dual cultivation vessel for his son, but not long after the betrothal, Nangong Se had met an unexpected end, while Ye Wangxi had lived on. Moran couldn't help wondering if Nangong's death back then had been entirely coincidental. If maybe Shizun had helped his death along to protect his daughter. I'd say not, he thought. In the illusion, Shizhuanglin's hands balled into fists. His smile remained, but his tone grew chilly. You want little Yize to marry Asa? She's the best choice. How so? Shizhuanglin laughed. You wanted to train her as a commander of the Shadow God, so you turned her into what she is now, neither man or woman. Excuse you, just because she has a deep voice doesn't mean she's any less of a woman. And if she wanted to be a man, then she wouldn't be any less of a man either. Now you want to give her to Sarar. Aren't you worried that Sarar will scorn her? He's actually none too pleased about it. I used to see him chatting and laughing with Yewangshi all the time, and has always been good to her, so I thought he would accept it. But when I told him, he was furious. He said he didn't like Yewangshi at all. He was just looking out for her because it's tough being a girl in the Shadow God. He refused the engagement. Look, no one accused Nangong Liu of being emotionally intelligent, so obviously he can't tell that Nangong is saying that just because he wants to protect Yewangshi. Shushwanglin was silent. But how could I allow it? He got into a huge row with me, saying I don't take his decisions seriously, that I'm arranging his life as I please. And he's been avoiding Yewangshi ever since. These days, he wants nothing to do with her. The more I try and bring him around, the worse his attitude. Now he even accuses me of siding with Yewangshi. The boy doesn't know what's good for him. Nangong Liu fumed. Is he rejecting her because he doesn't like her looks? If the previous sect leader suddenly told you to marry a woman you didn't care for, would you do it? Shu Shuanglin asked, quite sensible. I doubt it's a question of looks. You really don't respect him at all. He's too shallow. If he's going to take a wife, he might as well pick a useful and virtuous one. If it's pretty girls he's after, nothing's stopping him from taking a concubine after his health is stable. Nangong Liu sighed. It's my fault for not, he coughed, for not recognizing Yawangshi's feelings for Saar earlier. If she still looked the way she used to, Saar would definitely like her. That's preposterous, said Shu Shuanglin. Saar still wouldn't accept it. Then he'd rather die? Dual cultivation with a man with an unstable spiritual core. The way that I thought this sentence was going somewhere completely differently. With an unstable spiritual core like his will be agonizing. If you married an ordinary woman, she couldn't withstand it. Nangong Liu took a deep breath. But Yewangshi is willing, because she loves him. She can take it. What do you mean, she's willing? I've asked her. What? I've asked her. I've already talked to her about this, Nangong Liu said. She worries more for Saara's affliction than her own life. Shushonglin lowered his head in silence, his thoughts inscrutable. That girl is foolish, he said after a long pause. By this point, Moran was near certain. There was no way that in the past life, Nangongse had simply contracted some illness and died. It was vastly more likely that Shu Shuanglin had personally put him in the grave. With Nangongse dead, Yewangshi could live. That Nangongse still lived in this lifetime was likely a stroke of luck in the form of Song Chitong. As a butterfly-bone beauty feast, Song Chitong was ideally suited for dual cultivation. If she were to marry Nangongse, his father would have no complaints. In fact, Nangong Liu probably felt like a meat pie had dropped from the heavens. The equation between Song Chitong and food is just, can they stop? To be honest, misogyny always makes no sense, and to be fair, women being so much lesser is basically part of Confucianism. Then why are you exposing my girl like that? Are we talking about the illusions just totally laying poor Yewangshi's feelings bare for all to see? Because, yeah, that would be, I don't want to say my worst nightmare, because in the context of ErHa's universe, there are many worse things in life, but as a normal, high school student level thing, this is pretty damn terrible. Mm. He would no longer push Yewangshi to marry Nangong Se, and since Yewangshi and Nangong Se were no longer engaged, Zhishuangling had no reason to move against Nangong Se in the current lifetime. All this made perfect sense. Yet there was one thing that still mystified Moran. Why did Zhishuangling, who seemed every bit a deranged monster, care so deeply for Yewangshi? She was no more than his foster daughter after all. What was the sly, mercurial man so fixated on? Like, I'm gonna take it as him being like, you are so cruel. Why do you care for someone when you don't even have the quote unquote excuse of the person being blood related? But I don't like the way that sentence sits. But it is a good question. What was he after? This memory was fairly brief and ended shortly. When the illusion lit up again, it showed a scene from many years ago. Nangong Liu was notably younger and thinner. He held a small object in his hand that twinkled with jade green light. As the onlookers peered closely at it, they realized it was the ring of the Rufeng sect leader. Once on its wearer's finger, this ring couldn't be taken off until the day the wearer left their post. If Nangong Liu was holding the ring, he hadn't yet officially become the master of Rufeng sect. An attendant entered and knelt in greeting. His robes were splattered with blood, as though he'd just stepped off the battlefield. This must be the night Nangong Liu slew his master and reclaimed Rufeng sect's ring. Sect leader, how should we deal with Luo Fenghua's body? Nangong Liu turned the ring in his hand. Bury him in the hero's tomb, he replied after a moment of consideration. Regardless of all else, we were once master and disciple. Allow him to rest in dignity. Yes, sir, said the attendant withdrew. That's contradicting what he said he did. How? What's going on? What's going on? Like, he would have no reason to lie about that. Because he's too selfish to lie about something like that. Moran furrowed his brow. This couldn't be right. According to the previous memory, the Nangong brothers' teacher, Luo Fenghua, had been hacked to pieces by Nangong Liu. His body had been thrown into the blood pool of hell, where he'd been transmogrified, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, into a vicious ghost. He had fallen into the infinite hells, never to reincarnate. Why was Nangong Liu saying he wanted to bury his master's intact body in the hero's tomb? Within the illusion, Nangong Liu rubbed the sect leader's glimmering ring. A strange and complicated light flashed in his eyes, containing both trepidation and longing. His throat bobbed. At last, he slowly lifted his hand. Under the soft glow of the candlelight, he solemnly slid the ring onto his thumb. He stared at his hand, examining it carefully. The corners of his mouth slowly curled, as if to herald a brilliant, delighted smile. But before the smile had spread over half his face, it froze. Nangong Liu screamed and toppled from the sect leader's throne. His body convulsed. Sect leader, what's wrong? Attendants rushed to help him, but none expected that when Nangong Liu lifted his head, his face would be bathed in blood. Countless tiny cuts had opened on his face, perfectly smooth and healthy moments ago. The bizarre wounds tore open and yielded in an endless cycle, gushing blood without cease. "What's going on?" Nangong cried in a panicked terror. It hurts so much. Why is this happening? What's going on?" Footsteps sounded outside the door. Sorry, my throat is scratching. A man walked into the room, outlined by moonlight, stepped onto the ice-cold brick with stepping onto the ice-cold brick with slender bare feet. He came from before Nangong lifted the hem of his robes, and dropped to one knee. The newcomer was none other than younger Shizun. He leaned down and brought Nangong face closer to examine it carefully. Nangong gasped for breath, his tears, snot and blood mixing miserably. Shizun frowned in disgust. "How did this happen?" I don't know. Shuanglin, Xiansheng, please save me." Back then, Shizun was still one of Nangong advisors. He didn't yet merit the title of elder. Looking over the withered Nangong Shizun took hold of his right hand. When he saw the ring glittering there, his expression changed. "There's a curse of 10,000 calamities on this ring." The aides gathered nearby gasped in horror. Only Nangong seemed to be lost in a trance of pain, oblivious to the details of the lethal curse. He raised his tear-stricken face in confusion. Glistening snot leaked from his nose, mingling with blood and dripping onto the tiles. What? What's that?" "It's a deadly curse." Shizun wore an ugly expression. Luo Fenghua left a terrible curse on this ring. Under its influence, the next wearer's skin will tear open under the slightest bit of moonlight, consigning them to a life worse than death every single night. "What?" "That's not all." Shizun ran his fingers along the ring's jade stone. He closed his eyes and sensed a rush of spiritual power from it. When there's a full moon, even if you don't take a step outside, even if you hole up and avoid the moonlight, you'll still feel you're being hacked to pieces. There's no way to escape it. He opened his eyes and glanced at Nangong who was curled on the ground, inhumanly wretched. "The only respite is death," Shizun finished softly. Beneath the foul layer of gore, Nangong pupils contracted. He looked like an oversized rat seized by panic, or like a snake surveying a gloomy cave. He twitched, almost comically, and muttered, "The only respite is death?" "The curse, it can't be broken." "It can't be broken," Shizun responded. "At least, I can't think of a way right now. Perhaps later you could." Before he could finish, Nangong broke free of his grasp. Screaming and cackling, he staggered down the stairs, leaving a trail of blood to meander across the cold, bright tiles. As he wailed and shrieked, his voice grew so distorted, so shrill, that many of the onlookers had to cover their ears. "Huh! A curse? You curse me. Luo Fenghua, you stole the sect leader's seat from my family, the Nangong clan. I left your corpse untouched when I ousted you, which was already perfectly just. You actually cursed me? How could you have the heart? How could you have the nerve? I wanted to acknowledge the favor of your teachings and bury you in the hero's tomb." "Ha! The hero's tomb. But you'll have to suffer each night. My skin shreds to pieces. The only respite is death." "Okay." He howled, dragging himself inch by bloody inch to the gates of the main hall. He slumped in the dark shadow of the hall's great bronze gates, his claw-like fingers twitching ominously. Without warning, he struck the ground with his hand. The only respite is death. How could you be so heartless? Why would you be so heartless? Bastard. You bastard. You ruined my life, said Lida. Unable to watch any longer, an attendant approached and tried to help him to his feet, but Nangong Liu bellowed and snarled. He looked utterly deranged, his face presently a gory mess, had ever exuded a feeble and incompetent air, but now a deep hatred was etched across his features. It danced in his pupils like wildfire, consuming the last scrap of his rationality. Let my first order, as sect leader, be known, Nangong Liu screamed hysterically. The attendant knelt to hear the command. The previous sect leader, Luo Fenghua, has committed terrible crimes of utmost evil. He cannot be pardoned. I command you to take his remains and hack them to pieces. Turn him into paste. Oh, okay. Xu Shuanglin stood calmly off to the side. He listened with his eyes lowered, his expression unreadable. As his face tore open once more, Nangong Liu could no longer bear it and collapsed in a desperate sobs. I'm just realizing, like, if you, as Xu Shuanglin, was there the night that all of this happened, would you need him to clarify that for you? Nangong Liu could no longer bear it and collapsed into desperate sobs. But he still completed his first order as a leader of the Ruvung sect as he cried, grinding each word between his teeth. Throw his body into the blood pool. Your curse will mutilate me, but the only respite is death. I'll throw you into the infinite hells, never to reincarnate. The scene faded on Nangong Liu staring with unseeing eyes, his voice hoarse as a broken shin, as he muttered, Luo Fenghua, you bastard. You bastard. The shards of memory scattered apart once again and gathered like snowflakes. The crowd was enthralled by the drama of Ruvung scandals laid bare. Some, like Yang Shi and Nangong Si, had no choice but to watch. The events depicted concerned them personally, but most of the audience was simply thrilled by this glimpse into the sordid secrets of others. That is actually really gross, but okay. Midvan's descriptions are wild. She loves her Goya. Envy was the world's ugliest emotion. Of those who had been invited to Nangong's wedding, how many had come to pay their sincere respects to Ruvung sect? Upon walking through the magnificent palace gates, treading upon the spiritual stones worth their weight in gold, seeing those 72 stately cities, how many people felt pure admiration without an ounce of jealousy? The loftier the edifice, the greater the crowd watching when it collapsed. These people would litter the ground with shells of melon seeds as they gossiped, spittle flying a yard with each word. Along every avenue and alleyway, over a cup of tea or after a meal, the suffering of others was always the headiest spice for conversation. Okay. My throat is kind of killing me right now. Let's see how much more I can do. Moran almost couldn't bear to continue watching, but his need to understand the situation's layers, complexities outweighed his distaste. Xu Shuanglin's memories seemed legitimate, and they offered an explanation for everything that had happened at Jincheng Lake and Peach Blossom Springs. Yet Moran felt vaguely that a piece was missing. Some elements in this last memory didn't add up, but which ones? He knitted his brows and pondered in gloomy silence. Suddenly, he saw a strange flash of light out the corner of his eye. With the new illusion taking shape, no one had bothered to look beyond the forest, and therefore no one had noticed. Moran stood frozen, his face drained of colour. Then he yelled at the top of his lungs, "It's apocalyptic fire!" Everyone turned. Apocalyptic fire? Where? Over there. It's over there. No, it's over there too. While everyone had been mesmerized by Shuanglin's memories, Rufangsek's 72 cities had gone up in raging scarlet flames. Guys, I thought we didn't have to worry about this, but I didn't think that if there was something to worry about, you guys would notice. The fire was yet distant, and the forest was dense. The blaze was easy to miss if their attention was elsewhere. Okay. Apocalyptic fire was no natural occurrence. This type of spirit-fueled inferno could only be doused by a great rainstorm. It would otherwise be unstoppable until it consumed everything in its path, leaving behind not a single blade of grass. Thick smoke bellowed. The light of the flames was a water spilled on silk, rapidly blurring at the edges. In the distance, one bright arrow after another streaked like meteors from the 72 cities. But how could they be meteors? Though these were the Rufengsek disciples fleeing the conflagration on their swords. Oh my word, many blanched at the sight. What's going on? They cried. Even more turned on their heels and started running back towards Poetry Hall, calling the names of their companions. Shizun Yong's face fell. Madame Wang was still in the hall, and she couldn't ride a sword. I ran. You hung. I'll leave Mangara to you guys. I gotta go check on my wifey. If anything happens to either of them, Moran was worried too. He nodded. Uncle, hurry. Get Aunt out of there. We'll be here. I won't let anything happen to Shimeng. Shizhen Yong clapped him heartily on the shoulder and promptly took off towards the flame-wreathed Poetry Hall. Xu Shuanglin stood unmoving as chaos broke out around him. He flashed a brilliant grin and laughed. What a sight! The monkeys scatter when the trees fall. I am unfortunately not creative enough for all the insults that I want to sling at this man right now. What is the point of being a writer if I can't even insult this man right now? Moran whipped around and saw Shuanglin snap his fingers. Sparkling shards of memory rushed into his palm like millions of snowflakes. The illusion dispersed, revealing surroundings that were fast becoming a sea of flames. The heavenly rift to the infinite hells yet gaped in the sky, pouring golden red lava that flowed sluggishly towards the forest. As Moran stared at Shu Shuanglin, a shiver ran down his spine. The look in that man's eyes was all wrong. It was a look Moran knew only too well. In his past life, he had seen eyes like this each time he stood before a mirror at Sishun Peak. At the deserted Wushan Palace, after Chuaning died, eyes filled with madness and bloodlust, with self-destructive despair, the eyes of someone who wanted to take every living person to the grave with him. Do you want to destroy Rufeng Sect? At Moran's question, Shuanglin's first reaction was to rub his toes together. This man and his toes, I swear he has a foot fetish that is exclusively aimed at his own feet. Then he said with a sliver of a smile, "So what if I do? I'm destroying my own home." "Who asked for your opinion?" "Your own home." I mean, that's not any different to what you did, Moran. Lin stepped over the roiling lava towards Nangong Liu. He grabbed the Rufeng sect leader by the collar and hoisted him from the ground. Lin looked up. That's right, my own home. He forced Nangong Liu to face him. In front of that man, whose last breath had been suspended by the lychee fruit, who was living a life worse than death even now, Lin lifted one hand, then the other, to his own neck. Starting from the base, he dug into the skin and languidly and hurriedly ripped upward, inch by inch. There was a quiet hiss as he peeled away an exquisite human skin mask made from the painted slew of an ancient snake demon. Beneath was a face that possessed no more the charm of youth. Are we about to get the reveal that this was Lu Fenghua all along? Nangong Liu froze in shock. Then he began trembling and cowering. He felt like he was suffocating. But still he eked out some faltering, broken words. You? It's you? You're not dead. You're still not dead. Still alive. After all, how could I possibly die before you did? Lin smiled broadly. In every respect, I am your superior, and longevity will be no exception. Even after you rot, I'll be alive and kicking. What's wrong? It's been so long since we've seen each other. Are you speechless with joy? Lin conjured a flame and touched it to that mask. The fire burned all the way down to his fingertips, but either he was too distracted to mind it or felt no pain. He shook out his hand and pressed a charred fingertip to the side of Nangong Liu's mouth. Lin cocked his head and grinned. Long time no see, esteemed sect leader. Or should I say, Ge? That is where we're gonna end it tonight, because unfortunately my throat is kind of dying. That was not concerning at all. This is very, very, very messy, and I do fear that we're at this point in the story where we're gonna lose a main character, or a very important secondary character that I love, aka potentially Madame Wang or Xu Zhengyong. And if that happens, I'm not responsible for all the tears that I might shed. I have to say, I'm living for all the dots that are being connected, but it's very, very grim. Anyway, okay. Xu Zhengyong is, yes, he's all the hearts, he is the best husband. Truly the best. People don't simp enough for him. I am here to simp all the way. And yeah, that is it for tonight. We will be back for the next read along on Tuesday, and then I'm gonna see if I can maybe get away with moving the Thursday streams to an hour later. It does unfortunately mean that I'm gonna be streaming until 12 a.m. at night instead of 11 p.m. But I think just in terms of my schedule, it's gonna mean that I don't always end up being late for the Thursday streams because we're still at a restaurant and I misjudged my time. So yeah, if that does happen, you should see the different time on the scheduled stream ahead of time. So just bear that in mind. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being patient with me with this one. I'm really sorry for all the things that went wrong. And yeah, I will see you in the next one on Tuesday. I hope you have a good weekend. 再见。